Today we're going to be mixing up some secondary and some tertiary colors from a cool and warm version of two different primary colors. So we're going to mix our warm and cool primary colors to get 4 different versions of that same secondary color. So here we're going to use both a warm and a cool blue and a warm and a cool yellow to create green. So we're going to make 4 different versions of green. So we're going to take our warm yellow and we are going to mix it with the cool blue. 50-50. You want to have a 50-50 ratio here. So we're going to mix up a nice green. So this green has equal parts of blue and yellow. You want to make sure you mix it really well so that you don't have any streaks in it. And then we are going to take that green, hold it up to the color wheel, and make sure it's correct. And we are going to match it up where our warm yellow and our cool blue line up on the value scale there, or the scale. So we forgot to paint that circle, the blue. You're going to paint one of the circles, the one with the W, the warm blue, and that circle with the C, the cool blue. Or whichever color you are painting, you pick one of the primaries and you paint the cool primary where it has a C and the warm primary where it has a W. And if you're not sure which is warm or cool, you kind of hold it up to the color wheel and just see if it leans more towards cool tones or warm tones. Does it have tones in it that look more like the warm side of the color wheel, or tones that have more like of the cool side of the color wheel? So now I mixed up a cool blue and a cool yellow. So I'm painting that in the next square where there is a C where the yellow would be, and a C that is my cool blue in the circle. So now I'm painting my warm blue in this circle. And notice there's a W above it. So now we are mixing up our warm blue with the cool yellow. Notice I took the yellow first. I like to mix the darker into the lighter because the darker colors can overpower them very quickly. And we're doing a 50-50 ratio here, 50% blue and 50% yellow. So that is our warm blue. Now we're going to mix our warm and our warm, and we're going to get a warm green. Same thing, you just fill it in just like that. So now we're going to pick our favorite green. Whichever green you choose, you're going to paint as your hue in the value scale below. So where it says hue in the middle, you're mixing up more of the color that you chose. So I'm using my cool yellow and my warm blue, 50-50, mixing it up really well. And then I'm going to paint the hue right in the middle with that green, that secondary color green. So once we finish painting our square with nice neat edges, we're going to work on our tints. To get your tints, you start with a very small amount of white and you mix a little bit of white and green together, the green that you just made, and you're going to change the value of your color or your hue is going to get lighter. So I'm mixing my green with a little bit of white. Get your edges nice and neat. I find a flatter brush works really well for this. Sometimes you need to change the direction or turn your paper a little bit. And then we're going to add more white until we fill up that value scale where you see all the value changes. Now we're going to make our tones or our shades. In order to do that, you're going to take the color's complement. The complement is opposite your color on the color wheel. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of red, and you really only need a tiny, tiny bit. Biggest mistake I see is people tend to add way too much of the complement too fast. You really only need a tiny bit to change the value, or else you're going to end up with a really like dark brown color, because when you mix complements together, they cancel each other out and they make a gray or a brown. So now you're going to add a tiny, tiny bit more red to that mixture, and you're going to get an even darker value. There we go. And then you get the idea. You add a tiny bit more red to the next one, and you'll get your darkest values. The darker values are always the hardest because it's a ratio, and it's pretty precise. If you go over, it can totally change your color. But all you need to do, if you look at it, if you look at your dark and you feel like, wow, this is a little bit too yellow, and you want to cancel out the yellow, just think about the color that's on the opposite side of the color wheel from yellow, violet, and you probably need to add a little bit more of a blue violet to your color to make it darker. So there we go, we have our green. So now we're going to work on our tertiary color. So in the next box, in the next center box below this, you're going to mix your hue, in this case it was green, with the primary color to its right on the color wheel. So we are going to mix up a blue-green. So you're going to add half blue and half green. So that ratio really equals 75% blue, 25% yellow. So you can kind of look at it either way. You're either taking the secondary and mixing your secondary first and then adding more blue to it, or you can just mix up your color and add more blue to the combination until it matches the color you're looking for on the color wheel. But you really just kind of have to look at it and say, does this look like it has more blue in it? Does it look more blue-green, or does it look closer to green? And you kind of adjust a little bit accordingly. So I'm mixing up my blue-green here. So 50% blue, 50% green. And then we're going to paint that hue spot right in the middle of the second value scale. So now the tints, just like we did with the last one, you add a tiny bit of white to your color, and then a tiny bit more white, tiny bit more white, until you get all your blue-greens. Now, before we make the tones, we have to mix up the color's complement. So the complement of blue-green is red-orange. So we're mixing 50% red and 50% orange, and then adding a tiny bit of that to your blue-green. So we're going to progressively get a little bit darker just by adding a little bit more of that red-orange to our mixture. So now we're going to mix our next tertiary color. You are mixing the secondary color that you created first with the color, the primary color, to its left on the color wheel. So in this case, since we're using green, the primary color to its left is yellow. So we're mixing up a yellow-green. So that's 50% green and 50% yellow to get a color that is more yellow than green. Now, if you think about the ratio, you used 50% of blue and 50% of yellow to get your green. So really you're using 75% yellow with just 25% blue. So either way you want to think about it, if it's easier for you to mix up your secondary color first and then add yellow to it, that works too. And then we add white just like we did in our other ones to get our tints. And now to get our shades, we have to think about what is the complement of yellow-green. So the complement of yellow-green is red-violet. So I mixed up my red-violet, and in that little circle there, I forgot to do the circle above, we'll do that one too. You're mixing up the colors complement, in this case red-violet, and we're filling in that circle right there. So right now I'm going back and I'm filling in that red-orange circle above, just so you can see the color that you're mixing to get your shades. So just like we did in the others, you're going to mix a tad bit of that red-violet, the complement, with the hue yellow-orange. So my palette was getting a little messy there, and I didn't have much room to paint, so I just grabbed another sheet of paper to keep my paint colors clean, and I'm doing my mixing right over here so that I don't make a mess. And I'm just adding a tiny bit of red-violet. Now your color can get really dark really fast. If that happens, you just let it dry and you mix up a new version of the color and then go ahead and paint it. Let's see how this yellow-green turns out with its complement. So far, so good. There we go. There is our value scale of green. We have blue-green and yellow-green.